And like you said, leadership, especially when it comes to corporate America, is important to remove yourself from the experience, right? And for me, I knew that what is meant for me is for me. So helping someone, like a colleague or an employee, be successful at what they want to do or get to where they want to go wasn't going to take opportunities from me, right? So I will say that I always fully led into that. So I became that person myself as I started becoming more involved within corporate. Yes, there were leaders within the organization, women specifically, that I admire, just the way that they were showing up and the way that they were supporting and not gatekeeping, right? I think the opportunity to help and be the sponsor, right? I know if we talk about leadership, we talk mentorship versus sponsorship, and being that voice in rooms where that individual is not, and advocating on their behalf for opportunities, that's where, for me, the shift between a manager and a leader really is. So I hope that I am that to the generations that come in behind me.
For nearly 40 years, PIMS has worked behind the scenes of beauty and CPG. Along the way, we've gotten to know the people who make the industry run, the founders, the operators, the ones with the real playbook. This is the PIMS Influence, where they tell you how they actually do it. No fluff. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the PIMS Influence. Today's guest, Miss Emily Perez. Emily, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Emily, if you have ever been to a networking event, and we had met in the flesh the first time at the Boys in Beauty event, and she was one of those folks, like, you ever go to an event and it's like packed and there's like one thoroughfare that you can get through and you're hoping that people continue to walk and don't stop. So she was coming this way, I was going that way, and we kind of like paused right in front of each other. And as you'll see, as we talk, Emily's not one to just sort of sit and look at the ground and stare up at the ceiling, and introduced herself, and I introduced myself, and now we're best friends. So yes. It was meant to be.
It sure was. I'm excited. I attended, and then we had the opportunity to meet.
We're going to talk a little bit about Boys in Beauty as we go along, but I really wanted to sort of start in the beginning. People are always interested in the folks on the podcast, like how they got into this world of ours. So take it from the start. Originally from Brazil, I know that, right?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Brazil until I was 10 years old. I was moved to New Jersey at the age of 10, and I've lived in New Jersey ever since. But, I am a immigrant to the United States, the first to attend college from my family here in the U.S. And I am embarked as, that first gen experience in corporate America straight out of college. People tend to ask me, Emily, how did you find beauty? I always say beauty found me, because I do have a very unique way into how I landed in the beauty industry.
So Emily is the founder and president of Latinas in Beauty. Most of the people we have on the podcast didn't plan to be in the world that they're in now, right? Like they had other aspirations. They had planned on doing this, or even if it was in beauty, they planned on doing this in beauty and kind of founded this. So you kind of jumped in with both hands and both feet, and you're the founder of this organization. We want to talk about this, but I think originally you were planning on veterinarian was going to be your trade, correct?
Yes, yeah. So when it came time, in high school to decide, what I was going to do for the rest of my life, I am an empath, so I love animals. I have deep connections with animals. So I was like, a veterinarian sounds like a great career. So I actually have my degree in animal science. So it's a bio degree with some animal science, connected into it. But I went to Rutgers University, Cook College. For those that are familiar, really know they have a strong animal health degree. But in that journey, as I was embarking into this new path, I had to work at veterinary hospitals, right? So I had to be an intern. So I was working my summers. And through that experience, I was able to identify, I believe I was a sophomore going into my junior year, to identify that wasn't the right career for me. And the turning point really was the putting animals down and really having to deal with the emotions from the human side and what that meant. As an empath, I knew it would be very difficult for me to do that on a day-to-day. I went back to school and I was like, it was already too late to change career paths, so I finished my degree. And this was back in 2006, 2007, really trying to find what my new journey would be. And I actually ended up in a really amazing opportunity where I leveraged both my degree and also my culture and my heritage into a career. So I actually started working at a pharmaceutical animal health company, supporting their registrations in LATAM. So given my ability to speak fluent Portuguese and a little bit of Spanish, I was supporting their go-to-market strategy in LATAM.
So you make the transfer out of the animal world into the world of beauty, and it's a re-education, right? Like, as you mentioned, your education up until that point pointed all towards this, and then you kind of shifted. You mentioned something a minute ago that we get a lot too in our community is people, they don't understand that there's always time, right? There's always time to go back. You said it best, right? Like, am I wasting my time doing this? Do I have time to go back and do this? You're never too old to do it. You're never at a point in your career where you have learned it all, right? So absorbing this, knowing this about yourself and this industry that we have both fallen into, puts you a step ahead of the game. So let's fast forward a little bit to 2020. You think to yourself, someone has to build a community specifically for Latinas in beauty. What made you arrive upon that?
For me, it really was out of my own journey within the corporate space of beauty. So, I am a first generation corporate professional. So really navigating this world without the blueprint, without mentorship. So as I navigated from the animal health side into consumer product goods, so I leveraged that experience and I worked at Church & Dwight for a little bit and then really shifted into the world of beauty and working at L'Oreal. But it really was my journey into learning and strengthening how I showed up in the industry, which took me, I will say, a good 5 to 8 years to show up authentically myself and take up space. And I knew very early on, once, that clicked for me, that it was important for me to take other Latinas and other women specifically in the industry and mentor them. So I did a lot of mentorship and really, helping them figuring out how to find their voice, add value, and know that they are in these rooms for a reason. They've earned their positions to be in these rooms and their voices are important. They should provide their perspective based on their, education and their expertise. So I did a lot of work internally with the new organization when it came to mentorship, but also building community within employee resource groups, really leaning into the power of community. So in 2020, when I was looking for an organization to support and say, Emily, let's take this and make a bigger impact. And what I came to find out is an organization did not exist. So there was not an organization that was building community for Latinas in mind. And what really made me decide to take that chance and create the community was the fact that I was listening to the data, right? So I think in the beauty industry, we speak a lot from a consumer angle and what it means, like who's driving, the purchasing decisions, who's leading the market. And the data was showing that Latinas were already a very powerful force. But then also when you look from the US demographic lens, you also know that it's a fast growing demographic. They're very, young, fast growing and entering colleges at faster rates. So in my mind, I connected the dots and said, all right, they're already a very powerful consumer base right now for the industry. They're only going to grow in their influence and also in their purchasing power. So I understood that from the beauty lens. But what I also knew is that there wasn't a community that was connecting all of us across the industry, right? So really the opportunity that I saw was first, how can we build community where we see ourselves and we can know who we are, where we are, how we can support each other. But then also what I learned is the barriers that many Latina, Latine, and Latinos face in the industry is access. And that is access to a network, the decision makers, but also the resources, the education and the capital when it comes from the entrepreneurial lens, right? So the capital to build businesses. So all of that together, I knew that given my career and the network that I had already intentionally built, the relationship that I knew that I had that I could lean on to support is what really gave me that confidence to start this organization.
And you're doing so well with it, and people are just like jumping in. They're just loving it. It makes me think. Of course, you have a full-time job, and you're doing this at the same time as another full-time job. So, along with being a mom and all this other stuff, like you have all this stuff going on. Did it grow faster and much larger than you had expected in such a short time? Like, did you plan, like, of course, originally, I don't know if you planned on, doing the mentorships and, like you said, this whole community build around it. Has it been a lot more successful than you had anticipated?
I always knew the day would come where it would be what it is today. But when I started, it was slow. But what it signaled to me is, Mike, it started as an Instagram page. Like it's really organic and really rooted in community. It really was an Instagram page, and people immediately gravitated towards it because they finally found like a home, a place that they can go to, right? For the first 4 years, I intentionally built it with community. It was other Latinas, Latinos in the space that saw the need to come together, leverage our resources, and create opportunities. So in showing up consistently, time and time again, and understanding that for me, I lean in very strongly in that this cause is bigger than me. It is bigger than the current advisors and board members that I have part of this organization. Is for generations to come to benefit from the opportunities, right? So after building it for 4 years, yes, as the sole, founder and owner, but really strongly with community, it's how I was able to meet with my now two founding board members when I made the decision to transition to a nonprofit, Margarita, Arriagada, and Nadine, Tapia, really under that presence, that understanding of we are stronger together. We are all under the same vision and mission of creating opportunities for the next generation. And what we've been able to build since shifting from a for-profit and nonprofit really is the not only continuing to build community, but also be the voice for this community on the behalf of the industry.
Yeah, really well said. And, just the fortitude to know that, like, this is something not for the short term. This is not something for today or even just tomorrow, but down the road. And already thinking about, like, one day where it's so big that you're just part of this organization you've created. It's very telling.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. You talked a little bit about data a few minutes ago. So, it's a business too. And in business, you have to, be able to pay the bills and keep things. What do you do as far as the data goes to measure success with this? Is it through memberships? Is it like, do you look at the members about, the careers and that you help launch and where they're going? Is it the companies that you partner with and work with, or is it something else entirely?
For me, it's always been impact. The impact that we are creating for the community at large. Now that we are, a nonprofit and we're growing within the industry, it is, it's a business. So of course the numbers matter. And for us, growing community is very important for us. So we can showcase to our partners that we do have that community base that they can tap into. Because we see ourselves as the bridge between industry and community, right? So really leaning in on like the ROI and the opportunities when it comes to actually getting in depth with the community. But for me, it's always been impact, because that's listening to the stories, the real life experience of the impact that we're having on individual. We've had members come back and say, you are changing lives. And it is that important, for our corporate partners and our community to understand that we are changing lives. And that is because we are providing them not only with the sense of encouragement and empowerment to take up space, but we're opening doors for them that they would not have had on their own or through other organizations. But in growing this nonprofit, it is, building awareness around who we are and who we serve. So really growing community, but then also being able to showcase to our corporate partners that, for us is getting the community to understand these are the corporate partners that have put their money where their mouths are, and they value you for more than just your purchasing power. They really want to show up for an organization that is creating the change for you. So, there's many factors that go into it, but like for me, it's always centered in the impact.
Yeah, you said it with that. That's something, that as a vendor on this side of the world, we struggle with a lot, right? We want, and our partners that we have located and found want the same thing, right? This community building, making both ends better, right? Versus just exactly what you said. Somebody that's going to throw a bunch of money at it. Here's what I want in return. And there's no real cohesive relationship there short of, I want to pick away at your members, sell them to me, right? And I think you're doing a really good job of sort of vetting that so that, it's just not another group of people like, oh, this is the company, you guys, this is what they do. And, they're going to come and they're going to go. And then the next one's going to come in. Like nobody wants to be a part of that. I wanted to ask you about, you're fighting two fights without even knowing it. You probably know it, right? Like you are a woman, a business owner, you're Latina woman business owner. So you're fighting those two struggles and fights that independently are hard in themselves, right? Growing and climbing the ladder and making sure that you're represented and heard and getting in the boardroom, the things we talk about a lot, right? It's changed a lot in, our lifetime, our generation. Our mothers and grandmothers had to deal with such other issues, right? Talk a little bit about that. Like, what have you seen growing as a woman leader, as a Latina woman leader that you really hone in on when you saw this happening, it really struck a nerve with you and said, we got to do this, or you don't want to see it continue on a certain path?
For me, I take great responsibility and leveraging my privilege of being in these rooms to make sure that our voices and perspectives are heard. Because, as we know, when it comes to representation, is one of the things that we talk about too, and it's not necessarily just representation, it is equity and where we are in the decision making of organizations. So it is with great privilege that I take up room and take up space and making sure that our voices are being heard. But I think, as I see the progression, I think now I will see better listening to actually what we're saying, because, it's not through the lens of DEI that I want, women and Latina and women of color, Black women to take up space, is because from a business lens, we are driving business growth, right? So really from that opportunity of, in the beauty industry, yes, there's a lot of women, but a lot of them are mid-level and lower. As you go up the C-suite ladder, there's less of us and less of our voices being heard. So I take that very seriously. And what I like to see and what I am seeing is that our voices are and our perspectives and how that then weighs into business strategies.
It's great. Let's talk about Beauty Bravura Accelerator.
Yeah.
It's a cornerstone of your organization. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that one is led by Nadine Tapia, our founding board member. And for us, it is really rooted on access. And for us, providing access to education is pillar to what we're doing. So the Beauty Bravura program really came together out of the opportunity to build education for both entrepreneurs and professionals, but through the lens of their lived experience. And for me, the way that we build is that, there's a lot of information in the beauty industry or how, business are supposed to be managed, but we all know the full reality is not necessarily how we speak about it, right? So it's like, how can we provide them with the real way of building a brand and building a business. So for us, especially from the entrepreneur side and from brands, right? We speak about also increasing representation of beauty brands within retail. But we want to make sure that they are informed, that they know that they have the appropriate individuals in place, but also the right resources available to them, and that they're able to negotiate what it means to enter retail, right? Because doing the work that I know, it's one thing to enter retail, is another one to stay in retail, which is even more, is even more difficult. So we just wanted them to make sure that they had the information and the knowledge to do it. We bring in industry leaders and experts in different sides of the business. So from marketing, PD, supply chain, legal, now, building in AI into the conversation so that they have the full breadth of knowledge and what it takes from the beginning to retail. But then also what we built very intentionally is access to the network. So a part of the Beauty Bravura program, which we're very proud to be actually this September back at Pepperdine University, is we also build a legacy dinner that's part of this program. And the dinner was built, again, with intention of access to the network and access to the community. So while the program provides you and it's both for Latino, for every leader within the industry to be a part of, but it provides you a access to a larger group of individuals that want to support this community, right? And understand the influence and the value that they bring and are members and corporate leaders that are connected to Latinas in beauty.
Everybody, when they think they're starting a brand, they focus a lot of attention on marketing because they know marketing ties in with ROI, which leads to sales. But I think what they don't realize, and we're getting a lot of this feedback on the program, is, you mentioned supply chain, things like ingredients and supply chain and overseas versus domestic, and, the costs for things like tariffs and all that stuff sort of tie in with that. If you had to pick one mistake that you see over and over again that happens to promising brands, that keeps them from making the next step, what would you say that was?
I think, and I agree with you. So I come from the lens of the R&D side. So the regulatory, the claim substantiation, right? Like that side. I think especially for indie brands, you're building your vision with limited resources, right? So you have to be mindful of where you're spending your dollars and launching, a very compelling brand through the marketing lens makes sense because that's what's going to catch the eye of your consumer. I think where brands need to also maybe think of the bigger vision of, yes, right now I am launching a brand in the US for the US market, but where do I want to see myself in 10 years, right? And for a lot of indie brands, it's what is that exit strategy? Let's start even thinking about what an exit strategy could look like based on what you're building the foundation. So I think, yes, from a regulatory perspective, it is, spending perhaps a little bit more cost to identify, can your brand be sold in Europe, in LATAM, in Canada, right? Like, what does that global market look like? Because I'm assuming, and I would know that reformulating for compliance will probably cost you more down the line than if you were building for compliance early on. And I think also from a claim substantiation side is like identifying, partners where you could build a study to showcase, your efficacy of your product. So you can make that connection with the consumer to say, not only am I saying it, I have the data to back it up. And I think consumers are becoming more educated and informed and really want brands to show up and show how they're validating what they're saying.
Curious about a big topic at hand, and that's things like social selling, right? Again, the ease of access of getting brands from, point A to directly to the consumer. And that seems, again, 10 years ago, there was no such thing as this sort of TikTok shops and, selling online. What's your take on where that's headed? Like, do you think that's sort of unfolding quickly and maybe too quick? we run before we walk type thing? Or do you think it's, do you advise the brands that you work with or the upcoming brands that this is step one, right? No more do we sort of walk before we run. We're going to start right here. You're going to check all the boxes and then we're going to get right into it. What's your thoughts on this whole social selling thing?
Well, I think social selling is telling us that's where the community is, where people are and where people are engaging, right? So not only are they there to buy, they're there to learn, they're there to see others, being influenced by others and hearing others. So for me and indie brands, I think it becomes an additional source in addition to their e-commerce site, right? Because retail is limited and who can enter retail. So it's like, what are other pathways for you to get your brand in front of others? And I think, like you said, it's just become an easy entry. And I think there's the opportunity for brands to invest how to do it effectively and with the community that is there. So yeah, so I think it will only continue to grow because there's so many individuals that are on social media, right? Your TikToks, your Instagrams. And I think it will only continue to increase. I have Gen Z nieces and nephews, and that's where they're spending their time. And, they are buying from the TikTok shop. So if they are leading in that way, I could only see it continuing to grow.
It's crazy. My 20-year-old college son, I was buying something the other day, and he's like, they have that same thing on TikTok shop for, it was a fraction of the price I was going to pay. And I was, I'm 60. So like my generation is, we're afraid of that, right? Like it sounds like it makes sense. It surely is the future of what we're doing. Clicking of buttons is so much easier, but like I still write checks, I'm like old school like that. So it takes some doing to sort of bend to that. In the end, I was like, can you just order it for me? And he did. So, there's always that bottom line that you have to focus on.
Yeah. And I also think YouTube it's big because I have a Gen Alpha. So my kids are Gen Alpha. So my oldest is 12 and he doesn't have TikTok, but he does have YouTube, and he is stepping into beauty through YouTube, and his entry point is through fragrance, right? So that's how they're learning and engaging. So those social platforms, I think, are a way into selling into a broader community.
What about like influencer marketing here at PIMS? This is one of the things we work on a lot with clients, where they want to create sort of this white glove, beautiful reveal that they're going to be sending out this new products on or relaunching products with. What they engage us to engineer, design, create these custom packages, and of course do the fulfillment and distribution. That's changing. It feels like day to day too. What used to be very specialized and customized is so simplistic as to compare what it is now with things like shade matching, size matching, whether it's apparel or beauty or whatever it is. How do you think that's going? Like, do you think it's targeting certain specific audiences well, or do you think it's still sort of a work in progress?
What I'm hearing, both from the brand side and from the influencer side, right? I think brands just need to be intentional of who they're outreaching to and like who are part of their PR campaigns, right? Because I think sending it out to a large list and only receiving a few influencers that are posting intentionally, I don't think there is a lot of value, or you're not getting as much on your return from that experience. But what I'm seeing is, and especially from the lens of the Latina influencer, is I think they want the brand to be intentional as to why they're outreaching to them and to have that authentic connection and relationship. They feel more inclined and a part of the storytelling of the launch or the product or the organization. So I think it's going to, instead of reaching out, you're going to have to reach in and fully understand who your consumer is, who's going to resonate. So I think there's opportunities for brands to kind of do that work up front.
I think you nailed it. The authenticity of it is the magic number, right? Like that's the whole thing. It's not more is better. It's if you have that authentic spin on it, right? If your community feels like they're not being sold to, that they're being educated in some way, that's the whole difference. And I think that's something that some of the brands miss out on.
Yeah, because I think brands are also searching for and working with the influencers that have the most following, right? And I think also working with the micro influencers that have a stronger connection with their consumer base and their following, I think you can also get a little bit more of that return of investment of like working with up and coming influencers that I think also will share a little bit more gratitude of being a part of your PR, right? Whereas like the ones, that have a higher following, they're amazing at what they do. They're successful. They do have a community, but they're also getting a lot of products. So you also have to understand that they only have so much time to be able to create. So if they're just getting sent products without that connection and that relationship with the brand, you probably are going to lose that investment.
Let's take a 2-minute stroll down AI Avenue, shall we? Because what episode would be complete unless I asked every single guest something about AI? So I'm not an expert on it. I don't know how much you use it day to day. I'm sure as much as I do, right? Like it's become part of our world, whereas, there are people that have their entire guiding force of their business tied to some AI connection. There are others that use ChatGPT to do things right, help write emails or as a tool to make their process a lot easier. I'm sure these new founders or these people that are looking for advice from you come to you and say like, I don't know anything. It probably runs the gamut from, I don't know a thing about it, but I know I'm supposed to be involved. What should I do? To I'm quasi an expert at it. Do you recommend that I invest X amount of dollars, revenue into the progress of that? How do you use AI, first of all? And what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I do use AI. I am using it a little bit more every day because like you said, we need to learn and we need to start implementing it. So I do use it more from like a thinking strategy, more like a consultant from like very high angle, perspective. I'm not fully integrating it into like my daily business. But as I learn more and as I attend the Beauty Bravura program with the AI session, I'm sure I will start implementing a little bit more of that because I was like so impressed with like how you can have these, or AI individuals that are supporting your side of the business so that, allows you time to go do something else. So like I'm definitely, because I think that that's how the benefit to indie brands or self-funded brands is like, how can you invest upfront a cost, of course, but it is showing that it is a investment because it is less costly than hiring someone to do that function for you, right? So even from like an administrative angle side of things, just to ease, because, as founders, like your hands is tied into a lot of different things and you do have to function as a lot of different departments within your organization. So I think it's just taking off some of that low level work off of your plate, the administrative work, and then as more evolved, maybe potentially getting like that creativity. In beauty, where I think, I always question AI is when it comes to visuals. I mean, especially speaking to a community, that is diverse and we come, all different races and colors, making sure that that authenticity of like who you're representing is not AI generated.
Really good point.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that pops up every once in a while. Like you'll be, reading about an ad that was successful and then somebody did some research and found out that it was completely AI generated or partly. And then this topic comes up and kind of dies down again. But you're right. It will pop its ugly head up again about just that. Like there is a time and a place at this point in our worlds for this, right? Again, as a tool, but not as a substitute. I was reading an article this morning about a school district in New York that is the first school district, I don't know if it was in New York or the country, that's going to have a teacher which is completely AI created on a screen that you can ask questions to that will, it's like, I don't, and it was not elementary school, it was a middle school or high school where they could ask questions. And, it's kind of like the, Encyclopedia Britannica of 2026. When I was in high school, you wanted to learn something about polar bears, you went to the P in the encyclopedia and you read the 8 pages on polar bears, and that was it. Now you have somebody that you can ask all these questions to. So I guess your point is well taken, right? It's something that we all need to sort of engage in some way, but more importantly, maybe develop skills in, so that as this progresses, as this grows as a tool or as something that we're going to be putting in our everyday workforce, we know where we're going with it. We're not just throwing it out there.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Emily? So leadership, it's some people have the ability to do it, some don't, right? And it's not a plus or a minus thing. Like, there are people that are meant to lead. There are people that are meant to create these wonderful organizations like you have. And there are others that just are there to sort of engage and help in that effort. Who did you look to? Was there any kind of inspiration, whether it was a family member or somebody in your community or somebody that, was famous that you looked to as a child that you're like, I want to do what he or she is doing?
I come from a time before social media, so I didn't have access to, what individuals have today, which is, all the different profiles and different things. I will say I didn't have anyone to look to. I just knew deep within myself that I needed to do the work in order to make myself successful. And what that looked like, I had zero understanding of what that would look like, but I always led with intentionality and knowing that stay in my lane, follow, what's meant for me will be for me, but also knowing that I had to consistently be learning and consistently be evolving to be the better version of myself. And like you said, leadership, especially when it comes to corporate America, is important to remove yourself from the experience, right? And for me, I knew that what is meant for me is for me. So helping someone, like a colleague or an employee, be successful at what they want to do or get to where they want to go wasn't going to take opportunities from me, right? So I will say that I always fully led into that. So I became that person myself as I started becoming more involved within corporate. Yes, there were leaders within the organization, women specifically, that I admire, just the way that they were showing up and the way that they were supporting and not gatekeeping, right? I think the opportunity to help and be the sponsor, right? I know if we talk about leadership, we talk mentorship versus sponsorship, and being that voice in rooms where that individual is not, and advocating on their behalf for opportunities, that's where, for me, the shift between a manager and a leader really is. So I hope that I am that to the generations that come in behind me. But yeah, I guess I didn't have someone that I was, looking up to.
It's amazing. A little fun here. We're going to do a quick lightning round. I'm going to throw some questions at you. They're either yes, no, or just sort of one word answers. Just tell me what pops into your head first. Are you ready, Emily Perez?
Yes.
Here we go. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beach vacation or a city vacation?
Listen, I'm a Cancer. I love water. The beach.
What's your favorite beauty product you can't live without?
Right now, I will say it is between Rizzo's curls and Okoa styling products, because these keeps these curls under control.
What's one word that describes your leadership style?
Authentic.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Trust the process.
Love that. Last question for you, as we're out of time here. If a young Latina is listening today and wondering whether there's a place for her in this industry, what would you want her to hear from you, him or her?
I will say yes. and there's room for you and many others just like you.
I love it. Emily Perez, the president, founder of Latinas in Beauty, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. You're fantastic. If somebody wants to join your organization and reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you?
LatinasInBeauty.org or Latinas in Beauty official on Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.